Sure. So to not get into it too long, but graduated in 2014, and I had no plan whatsoever. Didn't do any internships, didn't have any jobs lined up. My mom was freaking out. I had like one part-time job coaching at like a Long Island high school. And then luckily Tyler hooked me up with a job coaching Division II soccer up in Massachusetts. So I was like, screw it. Like I've got nothing better to do. I've got nothing better lined up. Let's go try it. So did that for a year. It was cool. I liked it. But I really found that I missed New York a lot. It'd been the first time I'd been away. So I'm, grew up in Smithtown, Long Island, went to Hofstra, which is on Long Island. And then that was my first year like away. And I was like, I like having my family around too much. So came back, got another coaching job, but college coaching jobs at that level are part-time. So I need another job to support it. Instead of doing more youth coaching, I thought I might want to, transition out of coaching and something into the business world. So I got a job as a cold caller at a small stock brokerage company on Long Island and did that for about a year and a half, give or take, alongside. And it was awesome because it taught me a lot of good things of like, you're dialing 400, 500, 600 calls a day and your closing rate is, 1%. So, persistence, hard work, seeing stuff pay off, how to talk on the phone, how to do sales, all that stuff. But there was just a misalignment of, I guess, values where it was very much focused on like, what can I make off this person I'm calling and not how much can I make for my client and share the ride alongside with them. So for me, that was like, no, this isn't right for me. So while I was in the middle of that, I started looking at new things. My mom and my cousin decided to buy a flipping course. So they were going to try to flip homes on Long Island and the surrounding area potentially. And there was like a weekend seminar where you go like 12 hours a day, Saturday and Sunday. It might have even been Friday night too. I forget. And they decided to drag me along to it. So this was January of 2016. So about a year and a half out of school, a little bit more. And that was my first introduction to real estate. So that was it. That was like, before that, all I'd ever done was live in a home growing up and rent the house at school. And the example I always give for anybody that somewhat knows real estate or even knows, just from their own houses, I thought asbestos was a type of mold. So like I literally had zero information, real estate background whatsoever. I didn't know how it worked. So from there, it was a steep learning curve. Both my parents had owned rental properties before I was born and even early years, and then sold it off. So they had a little bit of knowledge. My cousin was an agent, so he had a little bit of real estate background as well. And then we had the education, so learning curve for the next few months. And then the next 6 or 7 months, we tried to flip homes on Long Island and just completely failed. Didn't buy a home, didn't put one under contract, didn't come close, didn't fail to flip one or anything. And it was for a multitude of reasons, but the biggest one was just technically two, but it's really just our lack of execution and not staying with it long enough. I fully believe that if we had stuck with it longer, because 6 months in the grand scheme of things isn't a long enough time to give something a good shot. I think we could have pulled it off and figured it out. The problem we were running into was the way the course was designed was it was based around mentorship with people that had already done it, but there was no mentors, quote unquote, within like a 50-mile radius. So no one in the tri-state area, no one on Long Island, no one in New York City, et cetera. So tough to get that intimate knowledge. And then two, it was based on quick calculations of renovation cost by square footage. As most people know, high cost of living area, your renovations are going to be much more expensive than what they were putting into the spreadsheet. So all of our numbers were always wrong. But like I said, it was really more of execution, because I know people now that are flipping hundreds of homes a year on Long Island. I know we could have figured out the cost of stuff and, changed the systems to make it work in our area. But it just wasn't right. So what we decided to do was we said, hey, let's go out of our area. Maybe we can find something that works. And instead of trying to beat a dead horse and do it ourselves, let's see if we can find somebody that's already doing it and leverage their knowledge and experience and kind of use it as like a drift or wake and kind of come in behind them and give ourselves a little bit of boost. So the way we decided to do that was by being a hard money lender on a flip in Pennsylvania. And we met this guy named Brian who was doing the flip. And through him, we met his cousin, John, I don't know if you mentioned or if that was pre-recording, but John is one of the co-owners at Toro, where I work now for the past 3.5 years. And just through that, started networking and stuff like that. And, we lent the money in the flip, and we just, as we started to learn more, we were like, I don't think flipping's for us. It was too short-term, too high risk, not enough tax benefits, which my mom really needed. Because she was retiring and she was tired of paying taxes. So we started while we were looking at that, we looked at flipping tax deeds down in Philly. And then eventually we started learning about multifamily, which is what John had transitioned over from. So John had bought 100, 150 homes down in Philly at auction. And then he had sold off most, if not all, of his portfolio at that time, and was on his way into multifamily, both on his own doing smaller multifamily. So 8 units, 17, 48, 50, et cetera. And then had just started his company, Toro, with his partner, Don. And what we decided to do was we had the same mentality of, okay, let's see if we can leverage John's experience and let's see how we can help out. So it was a few different ways. So the first deal we just invested in passively. So he ran the property. He would get certain, minimal fees and percentage of profits based on performance. And we were just along for the ride. The only caveat we asked for was, hey, can we just grab coffee once a week? Can we jump on a conference call once a week and just ask you some questions, ask about the property, find out more about it, take trips and stuff like that? And he said, sure. So we did that. And then from there, as we started having those conversations every week, we just found really good synergies. And as we were talking, he had just had the idea to start a meetup locally, and we said, hey, we'll help you with that. Like, let us help organize, coordinate, get people going. And then we started talking about like joint venturing on property, so helping raise money, help run it and stuff like that. So we actually joint ventured on a 17 unit property in the same area as that 8 unit, and then we joint ventured on an 82 unit property down in Jacksonville, Florida. And right around the time we were doing the 17 unit, I was still working as a stockbroker through all this. And I hated it, flat out hated it. At that point, I was ready to quit with nothing else lined up. And just one day while sitting down talking to John, just funny story. He's only like 5 or 6 years older than me, and I'm 28. So he's like 33 now or something like that, maybe 32. And just really funny, just very similar life stories. Like both grew up on Long Island, both went to college for sports. Both were, I think he did coaching for a little bit. And then he had also worked as a stockbroker for the same people I had worked for, just at a different company. And then he found real estate, moved over into full time. So it was like looking at where I wanted to be, but like 3, 4, 5 years ahead. And as I was just talking about and what I was, trying to do and get out and do real estate full time, he was like, well, me and my partner are actually thinking about bringing somebody in to help us out. Truth be told, it's a little early, but we can kind of, throw you some dollars to help us out on like a trial period, and let's see how it goes. So sat down with them, had a conversation, and then like within a week, quit, moved over there. They're focused on larger multifamily syndications in the Southeast and Midwest. So, $5 to $50 million, 80 to 500 unit properties. And that was August of 2016. And since I've been there, we've acquired around 4,000 units, around $280 million worth. And now I'm kind of in a role where I handle a lot of our acquisitions and asset management, mostly in the Florida region of our portfolio, but, chip in everywhere. So, that's kind of everything in a large nutshell.
Okay. And that's awesome because we've hung out a lot more recently and, even spending time in college together. I did not know a lot of that detail. So it's really interesting, and it's always cool and funny to see how people progress or step into different things. A couple of questions and points just to dig into there. One, how did you meet Brian? You said that was John's cousin. Was that just through general networking or investing?
Yeah, I think it was my mom. My cousin went to a RIA event and met him there. To be honest, I don't really know. It was one of them two met him either through somebody or at some event and decided to lend him money. Flip did not go well. We did okay because we were the first position loan. He didn't do so well. But definitely learned a lot on finding people, doing better vetting of people, looking better at deals. So it was a good lesson, made money, thankfully, got our money back. But But yeah, I think it was just through an event.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny because I have some relationships that have kicked off, and I'm sure you have these too. That's an example of one where it's led to something maybe 2, 3, 4 connections down the road. You don't even necessarily remember the origin, but it's just a good reminder to keep networking and keep being proactive with networking, going to events, messaging people, having coffee conversations. Like, you just don't know what something is going to turn into. And I have so many business ventures, real estate ventures that I can look back on. I'm not even sure how they originated, but people that just kind of came together and you start connecting people. It's just funny how that happens. And it sounds like that's kind of what happened with you. You kind of weaved a web of little connections and experiences from different places. And it led to you linking up with John through his cousin, through a flip in Pennsylvania, kind of all random. And then it led to now what you're doing full time and growing a business with Toro and making a huge impact there. And just, you guys have something really cool going on. So it's kind of funny. That's just something that I see and like think about a lot of times. Just people don't really notice it's happening. And just the two things that stood out to me from what you said is, I love the term, I've never heard this before, following in someone else's wake. Like, you hear that term a lot, like link up with people or find mentors, but it seems like that was a constant at the beginning of your story, getting connected with John, that you did it through following in someone's kind of wake or their path of what they've done to be successful, seeing what they're doing a couple of years down the road, and then also by adding value to them and picking their brain, either investing in their deal or through helping them something like a meetup. And then in return, they'll do a call with you, they'll bring you on, you just get closer to this person, you can start learning from them. So it seems like that's how you and John got connected, and then it kind of went from there. I mean, from when you came on to then now where you are today, what was that like transition like?
Yeah, so it's actually a good question, because it's what I was thinking of. It's, there's a lot of education courses out there now, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I don't think you can replace experience. And I think the good thing about, I don't want to say mentorship, because I also think there's good mentorships and there's bad mentorships, just like anything else. And I think you got to, understand where you are. And I don't know that I would consider mine a mentorship because it's a job, but I said, hey, let me, I don't say this to toot my own horn, but I took a pretty significant pay cut to move over at the time I did, because I knew that it would be worth it. So did I pay for one? In one way I sort of did. But it was, I had already done the educational route, and at least for me, it didn't work. And I said, look, there's plenty of people that are doing it, and they're going to have the experience of why certain things work or don't work. If I don't listen to them, that's my own fault, but at least I can learn from them. And then I've also found, for me too, I learn way better by observing and being around things and hearing things multiple times and being able to then incorporate that into myself. So even when it was sports, it was always, playing with better players always made me significantly better quicker, because it was, you can watch and learn and see what they do. And you may not pick it up immediately, but you start seeing the same thing 2, 3, 4, 5 times. You start to notice it, and then you try to replicate and you bring it into your own stuff. And I think it's very similar in the business world too. It's, when you start having conversations on, how you look at a property, right? You get a new property, and the conversation you have, it's going to be very similar every time you have that conversation.